The X Men will be in the MCU before we know it, so I figure why not make a video showing what I think would be the starting seven in the MCU. This would be fun because I get to go back a couple years from now and see just how wrong I am. But with that being said, like this list is what I think the MCU should do with the X Men, at least starting out, who I think they should use, who should be on the team. That's the same thing. And just kind of talk about where I think these characters should go and maybe even who they should fight. We'll see if we have time. If I have time, we're on a time crunch. But with that being said, hey, hi. Welcome to the Superhero Homies podcast. I'm Quentin, here by myself today. Let's go ahead and get this list started. So to kick things off at number 7, we got to go with Beast. Hank McCoy has to be on the X-Men because, well, he's kind of the only mainstream X-Men that they've shown in the MCU so far. At the end of the Marvels, I don't blame you if you forgot about it already, but Beast does show up in that. At the very end of it, he's with Monica Rambeau, and it's an interesting time they have there, those two. I don't really know what they're getting up to. I don't know much about that universe. I don't think that Disney knows much about that universe either. But because we've already seen Beast, we know that he'll probably be on the X-Men team. As a matter of fact, I can probably envision that the version of the X-Men we get will come from whatever universe Monica Rambeau ended up in at the end of the Marvels. At least to me, that makes sense. It's concise. You know, it's easy, or if they just use that, I guess. But other than that, man, Beast is a good choice because Hank really hasn't gotten that much of a huge role in the live action movies, not in a good kind of way. We got the Nicholas Hoult performances, which really gave him some time to shine. But if I'm being honest, I didn't really think that he was written that well. I didn't really think that he was much of a Hank McCoy. Honestly, the version that we got in X-Men 3, The Last Stand, that was probably the best one. And that's the same Beast that we got in the end of the Marvels. It just felt more like Beast. His mannerisms, the way that he talked, the way that he looked, it all just kind of tracked more like Beast. And if we get that version of the Beast in the MCU X-Men, that's the way to go, if you ask me. That version of the Beast, I think, will have some amazing action scenes, some funny one-liners, and some super fun science jargon stuff. As long as he doesn't say the word quantum, I'll be fine with it. So yeah, Beast I think is an easy option to go ahead and put in the MCU X-Men because again, we've already seen him. Next up, I got to go with Storm. Storm is a character that has been oddly underutilized in the X-Men films during the Fox days. And it's kind of weird because Halle Berry, I honestly never thought she was a good pick as Storm. I get why Fox would pick her though, because Halle Berry, she was a huge actress, big name. People are gonna come see the movie because of her. Hell, at the time, she was definitely one of the biggest names in that movie. So I can definitely see people turning out just to see Halle as Storm. Here's the problem though: she never had the demeanor of Storm. She didn't have that presence. She didn't have that kind of quiet yet powerful confidence that Storm has. You know, Storm walks into a room and she automatically just commands it. That's just the kind of person that she is. And on top of that, she didn't get much to do in the movies either. You know, we know what happens to a Toad when it's struck by lightning, so that's cool. But other than that, she doesn't really get a whole lot of time to shine. I mean, she gets her cool moment, I guess, in Days of Future Past, but everyone kind of gets their cool moment in Days of Future Past before they are obliterated promptly by those Super Sentinels or those fancy toasters, whatever they were. They look like high-end, sharp toasters, but they were cool, though. We also got another actress that played Storm in the more recent Fox movies, the First Class universe, if you want to call it that. Alexandra Shipp, I believe was her name. And she kind of had the same issue as Halle, except maybe the other issue that she had was that the script didn't do her any justice. Whereas like the previous X-Men movies didn't do Halle Berry any justice because there was nothing written for her. But in terms of the more recent X-Men movies, yeah, there was even less written for Storm in those. So I don't really understand what the motive was behind that. Like, if you're going to have a character like Storm, you kind of have to utilize them properly because Storm has a enormous fan base. So it's kind of irresponsible, I think, just to have Storm and then not really do anything with that character when you know that she is potentially a moneymaker, you know? So you have Storm, you have to have her behave like Storm. She has to have that quiet confidence. She has to have that booming presence all at the same time. And of course, she has to have some badass action scenes, you know? We have to learn more about what happens than when the toad gets struck by lightning. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, so I think that Storm will be, she's an obvious pick, I think. I will be hard pressed to find anyone who has a list like this who doesn't have Storm on it. And if Storm isn't on your list, you're wrong. All right. And even if you're right, you're still wrong. It's just you and Marvel would both be wrong. Storm needs to be on the team. All right. Next up, I'm going to go with Rogue. And even though Rogue did play a pretty significant part, at least in the first 2.5 X-Men movies, it wasn't really Rogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, Rogue was in the movie, but like, it wasn't Rogue. There was a character in the movie who went by the name Rogue, but Rogue was never in the movie. You understand what I'm saying? And this is one of those things where I just think that the old X-Men movies, they wanted to combine two characters into one. So they took Rogue with a sliver of her power and then combined that concept with that of like Jubilee or Kitty Pryde. And then we get that version of Rogue, which was, fine for the year 2000 when you could get away with, kind of shitting on comic book source material more. But in 2025, you really have to do something that is more in line with what people are familiar with. And with the success of X Men 97, I don't think that you can do any other type of version of Rogue. You have to give us that kind of Southern Belle type of Rogue. And again, this is from a different universe. They don't have to explain that Rogue got her powers from damn near killing Carol Danvers. But if they do, it's bonus points. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's awesome. So yeah, give us Rogue properly. Don't be afraid to, have her be that super strong character on the team, to be your muscle, to be the character who can fly, the character who has the durability and the strength. I mean, I think that'd be great. It seemed that for a while, maybe Marvel was a little gun shy about presenting other characters who were powerful in that light because they really wanted Captain Marvel to have that spotlight. But since that experiment seemed to fail, I don't see why you just don't go ahead and pull the trigger on someone else. So yeah, as a matter of fact, even if you want to show us how Rogue gets her powers in the movie, I think that's also a tremendous turn. But yeah, a more comic book accurate Rogue, I think, is needed. There's other characters who could take this spot, but I think that honestly, this is a really strong point for her. And then on top of that, if you want to throw Magneto in the mix as like a villain of some sort, which I probably wouldn't do for the first outing in the MCU, but still, you can plant those seeds for later on down the road. I think that really helps out Rogue a lot here. So if we're going to do Rogue, I think we also have to do Gambit. A lot of this list is kind of inspired by X-Men 97. The little show that could. X-Men 97 was tremendous, I thought, and apparently so did everyone else. The show really blew up and in a really strong way, and it defied all odds. I was willing to bet the farm that X-Men 97 was going to be garbage, hot garbage, but lo and behold, that show was amazing. But you don't just do Rogue and Gambit because there's Rogue and Gambit in 97. You do that because it's good chemistry and it makes sense. This is one of those things where, like, if you're going to have a romance in this movie, which it's the X-Men, like, they're all kind of fucking, it's weird, But if you're going to do the X-Men, and if you're going to have a romance, I think that this is the one to focus on. I was going to put a different one in here, but I'm like, I think that this is the romance to go with. But they're obviously not just in the movie to make googly eyes at each other, but they're in this thing to really have the hard conversations about the hardships of their relationship, I think. But Remy LeBeau has technically had one live action appearance in Deadpool and Wolverine. With no disrespect to Channing Tatum, you don't bring him back for this movie. You get a new actor. Oh no, this is his second live action appearance. Almost forgot about X Men Origins there. My bad. Uh, Taylor Lautner, was that his name? What was his name? Something like that. Anyway, he did a better job than Channing Tatum, I thought, but it's irrelevant. You get a third new actor to play Gambit, but this time you actually knock it out of the park. You know what I mean? I think that this is the time where Gambit really gets his opportunity to shine. As a matter of fact, I can see Gambit being the person in an MCU X Men film who really stands out above everyone else. I think that he will be the one who is the quote unquote fan favorite. You know what I mean? I think that with his skill set or with his mutant abilities, he's just got the capability to stand out in a really cool way. They can have some really fun action scenes with him. And they can just chew the fat with his dialogue. Not as much as they did in Deadpool and Wolverine, but they can still have enough fun with it so that the audience can have a good time and resonate with the character. And maybe unlike X-Men 97, you don't kill him. Or maybe you do. Who am I to say? There's a lot of mutants out there who can be, brought in to take his place. Next up, this one I went back and forth on for a while, but I finally sold it on the character who should take this spot, and it's Kitty Pryde. And I know I am rehashing a lot of X-Men who have been in previous movies, but listen, Kitty, just like Beast and Storm and Gambit, didn't have a lot to do. All right, so you put Kitty in this movie, and she's going to act as the audience surrogate. She's going to be the person who the audience experiences the movie through. She's going to be the one who is, maybe it's like Night of the Sentinels, but instead of Jubilee, it's Kitty Pryde. And, you take Kitty, and she's rescued by the X-Men, or maybe you just go the classic Chris Claremont route, and she's saved in that fashion. Either way, she's saved by the X-Men, joins the team. We get to see the X-Men through her lenses, and we get to experience it as she is. I think that Kitty is a good pick for that because kid's got spunk, and I think that that's just a good fit for that kind of role. I was going to say Jubilee. I mean, Jubilee would also be great in that role too, but the problem is at that point, you really are just making a live action version of X-Men 97. So I think that Kitty's the better option for like the audience surrogate. And this also gives her more screen time, more proper screen time. And I just think that she fit in perfectly, if you ask me. And if you disagree, that's fine. That's fine. I don't like you anyway. I'm just kidding. Only two more left here. My final two here. Second to last. This one is probably the most controversial mutant on the list. If it has to be controversial, I don't think it does. Emma Frost. And now you may be thinking, but Q, you haven't even said Jean Grey yet. I'm aware. I'm completely fine with getting an X-Men movie that is void of Jean Grey. I do not need to see Jean Grey in an X-Men movie. Hell, if they start the movie off and Jean's already dead, that's fine. Hey, that is A-okay, perfectly fine. It's not that I don't like Jean Grey, but I do think that Emma is just a much more interesting character. Again, remember, this is my list. All right, you don't like it, you can make your own. As a matter of fact, I would like for you to go make your own and post it in the comments section. I want to see what you guys think the starting 7 should be. But anyways, Emma obviously has very similar powers to Jean Grey, but for me, it's not the power set that I'm interested in. It's the personalities. And Emma has that personality that will challenge everyone, especially the likes of Cyclops and Storm. And I really love to see that kind of dynamic play out. And then also with Emma, because of her past, you have to wonder, is she really working with the X-Men or is she just playing them? So I think it makes for a really cool dynamic. That and you couple that with the fact that Kitty Pryde never trusted Emma. And I think that you have like a really good recipe for something interesting in this X-Men movie. So yeah, put Emma in that. I think that she challenges all the right people in all the right ways. To me, she's a shoo-in. And also, she's very competent in a fight, obviously. And then number one doesn't need to be said. I don't even know if you guys can technically see him on my shirt. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if you can't see him on the shirt, then maybe you can see this awesome crocheted figure here. But Cyclops, come on. Cyclops has got to be on the team. Uh, it's interesting. I am a really big fan of Cyclops. He's not my favorite X-Men technically. Technically, my favorite X-Men is Wolverine. I know I'm so original, right? But I do really love Cyclops. And I just get labeled a hardcore Cyclops fan because so many people unjustly hate him. It's not fair. Cyclops doesn't deserve that kind of hate. And I think that X-Men 97, I'm bringing it up again, has proven that Cyclops is a competent leader, a cool character, and knows what to do. Like, he is the guy in charge. He's the guy in charge on the battlefield. You know, he's the guy who's going to lead the X-Men into the fray and bring them all back out. Cyclops has his own demons to deal with, and I actually think that James Marsden, who played him in the original X-Men movies, I think that he was a good fit. He looked like Cyclops to me. I think he had the right demeanor. I think he had the right personality. Again, if you were not Professor X, Magneto, or Wolverine in that first X-Men movie, you didn't get a whole lot to do. And unfortunately for Cyclops, he suffered the same fate as like Storm or Beast or any of the other X-Men in those old movies where he just got sidelined. And he just didn't get a whole lot to do. And so much that we get to X-Men The Last Stand and damn, he's killed off screen, basically. And it's like, 15 minutes into the movie and Cyclops is dead. So I never liked that. But Cyclops, I think, deserves his time in the spotlight. And I think that he'll be a tremendous asset to the team, obviously. Like, you take him away and it's not going to function the way that you want it to. So, yeah, Cyclops 100% has to be on the team as team leader. I won't debate that, all right? There's other spots on this list that I could debate. Not debating Cyclops. Non-negotiable. He's got to be on the team. Now, really quickly, what about the villain? What do you do for the villain? It may be tempting to go Magneto, but you don't. You just, not right now. You can go ahead and establish that Magneto is a thing, that Magneto is already out there with his Brotherhood of Mutants. You can go ahead and establish all of that, but I think that maybe you do something different. Maybe you do actually do a live action version of Night of the Sentinels, from X-Men 93. Maybe you actually do something like that. But it's going to be maybe even then a little difficult for people to differentiate that from like Days of Future Past. But the only similarity is that both those things have Sentinels. But I think if you actually do like a more sleek, less purple version of the comic book Sentinels, you get something that's extremely scary. And I think that showing them from a mutant's POV makes them even more terrifying. So I think that would kind of be a cool threat or a cool villain to go with. But that does mean that maybe you bring back Bolivar Trask, or maybe you put Senator Kelly in that position instead. There's options. But yeah, other than that, you could go with a different type of mutant. You could go with, maybe you go with a Brotherhood that is without Magneto. Maybe Magneto was locked up and the Brotherhood is trying to, get him out. There's options they could do here. Hey, this list isn't about who the villain should be. It is primarily about the starting seven. Now, you may have noticed that I left out some people who are very crucial to the X-Men. I didn't mention Colossus. I didn't mention Wolverine, who, as I said earlier, is my favorite X-Men. With Colossus, with his appearances in the Deadpool films, I don't really know if you want to go ahead and bring him back in there. Multiverse and continuity and casual audiences, none of that shit blends well. So maybe for the time being, you leave Colossus out. And as far as Wolverine goes, he is his own cash cow. Not saying that the other X-Men I mentioned aren't cash cows, but not like Wolverine. Wolverine has the potential to make money all on his own. And so I think that maybe the move is you just have Wolverine in his solo movies, and then later on down the line, you fold him into the X-Men. That way, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Instead of having $1 billion movie, you get two different $1 billion movies. But I am not a Marvel executive. I am just a comic book nerd and connoisseur. But with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this list, this breakdown. And I really do want to see or hear what you guys have to think about the list and what your own list would be. I want to know what your list is. Who's your starting 7? Is my list completely bullshit or is there some good on here? But that's going to be all for now, homies. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I will see you guys again next time. But until then, my name is Superhero Homie Q. See you next time.